Hey, this is Impolite Company. I'm your host, Chris Sear. Before we start today's episode, just a reminder, you can download my album, Adult Child of Child Parents. Download or stream it wherever you listen to comedy albums. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all that shit. Simply go to christophersear.com and you'll see some links to the album as well as upcoming shows and links to this podcast. So yeah, check it out. All right, here comes the theme music.
The day the donuts disappeared from the quick trip, I knew we were in trouble. A fearless misfit tried to warn you. When you were trying to be cool, no lying, just defying all society's rules. God, politics, drugs, sex, and yes, y'all, TED Talks from Jesus. We worship Les Paul, or maybe it's Prince. Ever since I got a new religion, I'm not so damn consumed with consumerism. Ain't it time we examine the facts, man? I stay sharp like the claws on Hugh Jackman, they real. And I feel like a fucking hero, duking her trunk, but don't touch De Niro. Living on the edge, taking acid at a kid's party. Sweating bullets full of caffeine, that shit's hardly a day's work. And I'm talking my shit, cause I used to have it worse than Oliver Twist, dick pics, and John Wayne stories, man. My aura is your mom bumping Sepultura. No quarter, tweeting at the end of the world, telling street jokes. The illest motherfucker that you ever could meet, folks. How do I sleep at night? Comfortably. Hope you're in the mood for some impolite company.
I know I've talked about this before, but one of the things that most annoys me about American culture is the idea that things have to be inherently fair and that you're entitled to them being fair, right? But it's also only to be fair to you. You're the only person who is entitled to a just and balanced response from the universe for the energy you put into it, right? Like, you work hard at your job, you get the salary you receive, you work hard to get a raise, you work hard to save money, you work hard to get a house, you work hard to have a family and keep the family together, then you work hard to retire, then you work hard to have money left to leave to your kids. You work hard to die alone, screaming into the ether on your deathbed because you found out at the last minute there is no God and no heaven, and you're just out here alone. And your whole life up to this point has really been a waste, because even when you've worked to provide for others, all you've done is work to provide them a path to this exact same state that you're in now. So as you sit there unable to put voice to the words that you want to say, you want to tell them it's all been a scam. There's no way out of here. There's no God. I'm looking at darkness. I'm looking at the world slowly close in around me into a pinpoint of light. And not only that, since my brain is slowly losing electricity and the ability to function, and it's slowing down, this last millisecond of my life has been taking 20 years, 30 years. All I can do is think about everything I've ever done, because as the energy slowly leaches from my brain out into the atmosphere, I'm living an eternity in this millisecond. You can't tell them any of that. Instead, you're just kind of like, and they think that's your death gas. So they've just flipped the switch on the machine that's been keeping you alive anyway. You're there and you're like, your last thought is even, well, this was unfair. Well, congratulations. It only took you your entire lifetime to realize the thing that most of us realize anyway. But that's the notion of American fairness, is that you worked hard for all of those things and you're entitled to receive your rewards for what you've done, regardless of what it does to someone else. Right? Like, the notion of fairness is in direct conflict with the notion of improvement. I could point out a million different ways that doing certain things at a societal level that might cost you money and not benefit you directly improves conditions for everyone around you, which indirectly benefits you. I could point out a million of those, and you wouldn't want to do any of them, because socialism, because communism, because humanism, because of secular humanism, because of just plain, that's un-Americanism, right? The Protestant work ethic, the whatever other religions have that's equally as stupid as the Protestant work ethic. You know what I'm talking about, right? Because you're already thinking it. Look at the argument around raising wages for fast food workers. Talk to any person who works for a living in some trade, construction maybe it's your cousin who works in construction and is like really pissed off that you're even thinking about paying some kid at McDonald's $15-20 an hour to flip burgers. And you're not also going to raise their salary to where they make proportionately more than the fast food worker like they do right now, right? Like if you take that kid making $8.52 an hour at McDonald's and you raise him up to $20, well, now that kid makes $40,000 a year. I only make 60. What are you going to do? You're going to raise my salary up to 80? You better, because that's not fair. When really, it doesn't affect the person making whatever they make in construction. Also, no construction worker only makes $60,000 a year. If you're doing your job right, most of those are like going to be high 6 or high 5, low 6-figure jobs. But you know the people I'm talking about. You might be one of them. And at a baseline, I totally get that, right? Like, I get you don't want to think that your job economically is only about as equal as somebody working in a fast food restaurant, because you've been led to believe you're more important than that person. That person working at McDonald's is there to serve you. They're there to make you a burger. They're there to clean up after you leave your burger on the table. They're there to wipe the piss off the floor after you've used the bathroom and decided not to aim because you're a monster, and then you didn't like take some toilet paper from the roll and wipe up the piss you left on the floor, because they got people for that. And not only do they have people for that, those people should be paid far less than you, because your job's way more dignified than cleaning up someone else's piss off a bathroom floor in a fast food restaurant. That's fair to you. That's fair that you make more than the people who perform service for you, right? And you're part of the system because whatever you do, let's say you hang drywall for a living, right? You are led to believe that it's fair that you get paid what you get paid, and then the doctors bet, and doctors aren't all rich, but let's say plastic surgeons, so we know it's one of the asshole doctors who are rich. You believe that the plastic surgeon who owns the house that you're hanging drywall in deserves to make more than you because, I don't know, you're not as good as them. What is your justification for that? But you only believe that at base level, right? Like, you only believe that instinctually, because when you get home at night, you complain about how that guy's never worked a real day in his life and wouldn't know how to hang drywall if he had to. And look how soft his hands are. How does he deserve to make 6 figures while I'm out here slaving away for 5? It's unfair. There's all kinds of examples where we just shoot ourselves in the foot because we adhere to guidelines, societal norms, politeness. We adhere to all these things just because it's been beaten into us that that's how the world works, and hard work is fair for that. My pet peeve for this, where it's most evident, is the student loan system, right? Like, we know for a fact that it does nothing good for our economy to have student loan debt where it is right now. We know that for a fact. We know it's a drag on the economy for a large portion of the population to be burdened by that kind of debt. We're not talking about credit card debt or car notes or house notes, like things that have tangible items in the world that represent what that debt was for and could be repossessed if a person defaults enough. Or in the case of credit card debt, I don't know what you do. You can't repossess anything for a credit card debt. Someone's going to go bankrupt and not pay it, and then you write it off on your taxes. I guess that's a benefit too, if you're the company that owns that debt. But all of these other forms of debt, which have real world tangible things you can take, or relief that the person who has the debt could use to get out from under it because they can't possibly ever pay it back, they're a legal recourse. But with the student loan, The only thing there is knowledge, education, and a piece of paper. We can't reclaim that. So if a person gets behind on it, it just gains interest and it further buries the person. We know that's not good for the economy. But we also believe that, well, they had it coming, right? We believe that any person with student loan debt, they were old enough to know what they were doing when they signed the papers. They were kids, really. I think I signed my first student loan paper not 2 weeks after I turned 18. So that 2-week mark is the difference of when I should have known that this would follow me around for the rest of my life, or I should have thought Transformers were cool. That 2-week gap. Anyway, I'm not complaining. I won't qualify for student loan relief in most cases. I should put that out there. I'm going to argue a thing here that does not benefit me at all. In fact, it's going to create a system where I will still have to pay my student loans while other people get away without doing them. That's not fair, but it's right. But anyway, with student loan debt, we automatically divide into these camps where there are people who paid their student loans. I paid mine off. Why would I support any kind of relief for people who can't do what I did? I did it. You know, typical bootstrap philosophy that America loves. I worked my way up from being poor in the streets. Every other one can. I mean, sure, I had parents who helped me get an internship, and then I got to work free for 2 years for a large corporation where I made lots of contacts and could still pay my bills because I had help from other places. But every other American could do that too. You know, yet that kind of bootstrap philosophy applied to the student loan of I paid mine. Then you get the, well, I didn't even take out student loans. I went to a small school that I could afford to pay with a job that I had and didn't have to give money to my family for bills or anything. And then I worked my way through that job and I went to a bigger school and then I graduated with no student loan debt. And I get that. That's great for you too. And in some cases, those people worked really hard to do it. They worked 3 jobs, they paid cash, they didn't sign a loan document. That's awesome. They did that. So if they did that, why should someone who took out loans get relief? What's in it for them? What am I going to get if I didn't take out a student loan? What am I going to get in compensation for being smart enough not to do that is the argument. And then you just get the people who, man, I don't even know. I don't even know what that third argument is. That third argument is just like, fuck them. I guess that is the argument, right? It's not like fuck them. That third argument is fuck them. I mean, they ain't me. They ain't me. I ain't them. And I ain't helping because my money, and that's going to happen. Even though, we'll get to that. I don't know. The whole, that my money, you can't take my money and give it to something. Why am I paying for them to get a PhD? It's like, man, you're paying to drop bombs on brown people overseas. That's where most of your money's going. So why don't we first work to drop fewer bombs on brown people overseas? And then when we get that under, we'll start talking about how much you're subsidizing people getting PhDs in basket weaving. So as with everything, I'm just gonna put it out there first. You can look up statistics. You can look up numbers. I'm not giving you any of that. It's all out there. We all know these arguments. But Chris, that only supports the biases of what we know is true and what other people don't know is true. You're right, it does. But that's because any numbers I put out there that conflict with what you already believe, it's kind of pointless on my part because you're not gonna believe them. We're into this confirmation bias society where the sources we trust are the sources we trust, and any numbers that don't correspond to the sources we trust, fake news. It's all fake news. They want you to believe that it's poor people out there with student loans keeping them down, but we all know it's the rich trying to get us to pay them, right? Oh, I don't know, Kenny. Shut the fuck up. Sit down. All right. So my student loan plan. I'm going to just put it out there again. It's unfair. It's unfair to anyone who's paid for a college education from scratch. But it's right because it's better for us overall. First of all, with my student loan plan, I'm going to start with the position I don't agree with. I'm going to give in to all of that just unfair that you're helping people and not helping me, and I got to do all this without help, but they're getting help and help and help and help and help and help. All right, I'm going to cave in to that entire rural Missouri, get out there and push a mule kind of farm ethic that we're so famous for here. I'm going to give into it, and I'm going to say don't cancel any student loans. None. Don't give the $10,000 credit on them. Don't, which is meaningless. Fuck you with your 10. That's fuck you. I remember once somebody complaining or telling a story about giving $1 to a homeless person, and the homeless person looking at them going, what the fuck am I supposed to do with $1? And then they're like, well, God, why didn't that guy just take $1? First of all, don't give to panhandlers. That's your first mistake, maybe. But also, I kind of understand that homeless person after you read like some of the student loan relief ideas. Get $10,000, man. Let's say I would qualify. I don't, because I'm fucking rich. But, you know, whatever. You're not. That's fine. Let's say I did qualify. I have $180,000 in student loans that I pay on. $10,000. I would be that homeless person. Go, what the fuck am I supposed to do with $1? I can't even get a McDonald's hamburger. I can't even get a McDonald's hamburger for $1. I don't know. I don't know what the price of a McDonald's hamburger is. I'm a Sonic guy when I wanted hamburgers from a fast food place. But anyway, don't cancel any student loans. And this makes idiots who are more concerned with how unfair it would be to forgive student loans for some people. It makes them a little easier to digest this, right? I worded that wrong. It sounds like we're going to eat those people and make them easier to digest. But there's nothing you can do to make them easier to digest. For one, most of them from rural Missouri, and they eat genetically modified cows with hormones like pumped through. You eat that, you're going to get heartburn and grow bigger tits. So if you want heartburn and bigger, mine are big enough. I don't need to go around eating cattle farmers from Missouri. I don't know. Senator Manchin, like, you know, the most Republican of Democrats, like, he would support this. That's how much I think, if on a national level, you could get some traction for a student loan plan. If the very first thing you said was, all right, you know what? You're right. We're not going to cancel any of that debt. We're gonna keep it, quote unquote, fair. And even though it'd be objectively better for American society if we got rid of this debt and freed up all this money that could be spent on other places. Well, people who are super behind on student loan debts, they're not paying it anyway, so what money are you freeing up? You're freeing up the millions of dollars from the people who are making minimum payments on it because they're afraid of what it would do to their credit if they didn't. But now you could take that money from them and they could go buy, I don't know, EVs. Or if you think EVs are just a tool of the Communist Party of China to take over the country, they go buy giant gas-burning Ford F-950 13-ton pickup trucks and drive them with 9 different pairs of truck nuts dragging behind them because they got so much torque on that motherfucker. They could use their student loans for that. What you do, though, is instead of forgiving them, you change the laws to allow student loans to be discharged by bankruptcy, putting it right on par with every other form of debt. Why is it, as an 18-year-old kid, and I'll use myself as an example because I was dumb. I was poor. Now, like when people sometimes talk about how they were poor, and it's because, I don't know, they had a 10-year-old used car as their first car, or they couldn't eat steak more than twice a week, or I don't know, when they bought their first sex worker, it was like a bargain sex worker who wouldn't give you a full night experience, but only like a half hour at a time, and you had to pay in advance. One of those people who say they were poor. I was like United States poor, lower middle class poor. I wasn't like living in the Mississippi Delta eating bugs and being filmed by documentary crews because like a whole new society has sprung up from where the government has decided to completely abandon people. But I was like lower middle class America poor. We had cable because that's the only entertainment you could afford, right? On a monthly basis. It was like $15 a month. Yeah, of course you got cable. It's got cartoons for kids, stuff for adults to watch after work, and it gave like richer people something to tell you you weren't poor if you had cable. That's $1,300 a year you could have spent on something else. Fuck you. The kind of poor where your parents smoke. right? And that gave other people the ability to say, well, you can't be poor if you're spending $300 a year on cigarettes, whatever cigarettes cost at the time. I don't know. That kind of poor. The kind of poor where what little money you had to give people some kind of relief from the drudgery of everyday life, you spent. And then there were a lot of things you went without because they were way more expensive than whatever you were spending that money on. But it also gave like Ronald Reagan a reason to say you weren't poor. We were that kind of poor. So why is it the day I turned 18 and you gave me the ability to go on a college campus and get 9 different credit cards? And it was easy to get 9 different credit cards at the time because computer databases weren't that great. Like they couldn't tell you just got a credit card from someone else. So if you had 0 credit history and the right timing on filling everything out and getting it in the mail, because there was no online filing, right? You had to mail it. If you were quick about it, you could get 9 credit cards from people who thought they were your first credit card. And it was easy to do because all you had to do was go on freshman registration day, and every single one of those credit card companies had a booth set up in the quad of St. Louis University. That's where I went because I was stupid and did not go to a state school or a community college first, like my parents told me I should probably consider to make sure I knew what I wanted to do. But no, I had also been told you want to be a lawyer, you got to have a skill. This wasn't by my parents, by the way. My parents weren't the one, for all their flaws that they think they had, not that I think they had, but for all the flaws they think they had, they were right about a lot of things. They were not the ones who pressured me to go to a 4-year college, a 4-year Jesuit college, a 4-year higher level Midwest Jesuit college as my first out of the bank college attempt. They weren't the ones telling me to become a lawyer or an accountant or a corporate raider. They just said, go learn some shit. You need a college degree to get some of the jobs you might want. Go do it. Doesn't matter where. But I had believed things like from my guidance counselor in high school who said, you got to go to St. Louis University. You want to be a lawyer. Look, you're a poor kid. You can't afford that liberal arts education where you go get like a master's of fine arts and get a writing degree. What are you going to do? Write stories? My guidance counselor was like, you can't go into theater. No one makes a living doing being a playwright. If you're poor, you need to pay bills. You got to be a lawyer. So I had to drilled in me, like from the beautiful staff at Soldan High School, which my personal guidance counselor at school was great. She was cool. But then like we went all like, I don't know, state regulated, and we got a new one my senior year, and she's like, just sign the papers. Sign the papers. So I did. I went to SLU. I got accepted. Signed up for all the student loans I got on the same day. I signed up for every credit card I got. And why is it that the credit cards I got that day when I turned 18, when I charged it all out and had no way to pay, I had legal recourse to get out from under those, going, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a stupid kid. And then all I had to do was live with 7 years of all those settlements. And they were gone. Why is it that was okay, but I could sign up for what would turn into $100,000 worth of student loans? And I can't go, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a dumb kid. Why is it that's the one where people go, you knew what you were doing. What the hell? You knew you'd have to pay it back. You were in college. It doesn't make sense that it's not on par with each. I know there are arguments against it, like, well, you can't give back the education that you got. Okay. I could totally not put that degree on my resume. I don't use it. I didn't even graduate from SLU. I went there for 3 years, and then I graduated from UMSL, University of Missouri St. Louis. I should have just gone there to begin with. That was very, very reasonably priced. I went to both my undergrad and master's program there for way less than the 3.5 years I was at SLU before I dropped out rather than failing, because I started staying up all night playing collectible card games and drinking. That's a different show. Point is, you change the laws to where student loans can be discharged via bankruptcy. But it's ridiculous that they're inescapable. It's ridiculous that you can't just file bankruptcy, suffer for 7 years, that it stays on your credit, and then it gets wiped off. The same as if you had charged up $50,000 to MBNA, who doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, MBNA in 1995 and did not have to think about it again after 2001. I don't know, that exclusion guarantee that where they can't be discharged in bankruptcy only encourages schools to raise prices because they know that since those loans are guaranteed, they never go away. Anybody can get them. So schools can raise prices, kids can go in, they can get more loans. It's a system where there's no check and balances. And as much as we love in America to talk about the power of the free market, how is that a free market system? How are schools in that case incentivized to keep costs low when they know the kids coming in can pay whatever they want? Like we see it in American healthcare, right? Like Republicans love to tell us that healthcare prices are only so high because we give Americans insurance. So doctors don't have to keep their costs in line. So yeah, so Republicans see that and they're like, well, that's clearly against the market, but they don't want to see the same thing in the education system. I don't know. There's been multiple acts in Congress that have tried to do it. And there's always pushback from you can't even just say Republicans, right? Like it's bipartisan. Some Republicans want to get rid of the exclusion from bankruptcy for student loan debt too. I can't be unfair. There are some. And there are a lot of Democrats who push against it. And I would say, I looked at a few, but I would say if you look at all of them, that's some good Donald Trumpism right there. Like, I would say if you look like I'm not willing to put myself on the line for it, I am. I will put my life on the line. If you find out this is not the case, you can find me and behead me. You won't be the first person who wants to. I would say a lot of those people are backed by banks, right? Like you're going to look into their campaign funding and you're going to see some contributions from banks who are part of the publicly subsidized student loan game. I don't know. The Department of Education itself has opposed it several times. Like the U.S. government Department of Education doesn't want it because why else would you need a huge chunk of the staff from the Department of Education? Their argument is stupid. Their argument is that it would not control costs because you would be pricing poor people out of the college system. And maybe at first you would, but you'd be pricing them out of a self-perpetuating system of rising costs and predatory lending. Something else will fill that gap. I don't know. My second thing. All right. So I'm so easily derailed. I'm sorry. The ADHD. So we don't get rid of all student loans. We don't forgive any of them, right? Everybody's still got your student loans. Sorry, kids. You got the loans. However, if you can't pay it, you can discharge it through bankruptcy. Boom, you're great. Like so many people, I know. I do believe that. I do believe there will be a rush to get rid of student loans by poorer people who don't really care about their credit to just get them off of there, right? I don't think everybody will do it. There is a huge chunk of the American population that still lives and dies by credit because they know you need it for everything from your car insurance to your health insurance to your home mortgage to getting a job. They can't all rush out and go bankrupt. But there will be a number of them. And that's good. That's what the bankruptcy laws are for. The bankruptcy laws are to make sure that you don't end up with an indentured servant population. We already are indentured servants for so many other reasons. You don't need it just because of debt. All right. So we let you get rid of them in bankruptcy. Next step, you place a cap on the amount. And look, I know, I'm saying a cap. Free market people are like, oh, you just got to let where the market wants to give. The market's got to do. I get it. So I'm going to limit this. Let me finish the sentence. You place a cap on the amount of federally backed student loans offered to students. Federally backed. Look, if your parents want to take you to a private bank and get a predatory loan from a private bank to pay for college, that when you graduate, you don't get the 6-month grace period, you don't get the instant built-in forbearance, you don't get the instant built-in deferment, and then the moment you miss a payment, all of it becomes due at once because that's what those private loans are great for. You're still allowed to. Go get as much as you want. Not only that, I'm not even going to limit the schools from telling you to go do that, right? Because we all know they thrive on that system. But what we are going to say is that for federally backed student loans, the kind of loans that even though they can't be discharged through bankruptcy, when you miss a few payments, the federal government makes those payments up to the lender anyway. We're going to limit the amount of those that students can get. You can only get, let's say, look, I'm just picking a number. I'd say you put together a committee. They figure out what a college education costs. I'm just a guy who tells dick jokes in the Midwest. I can't tell you what that number should be. I'm looking at America and I'm telling you, I can't see what that number should be. I don't know who that was supposed to be. What I'm telling you is that number should not be limited. So you put a cap on it, right? You remove, then once you set that cap, you're saying that's what college should cost. So any college or university that charges more than what we say college should cost, boom, you're not a nonprofit anymore. That's a lot of negatives. Let me just put that in a more positive point of view. You're now a for-profit educational institution. Congratulations. Your endowment no longer tax exempt. Donations from alumni no longer deductible. Charge what you want for an education for that first 4-year degree. Charge whatever you want, but you're going to pay some taxes, which we should be doing anyway, man. Look at the endowments that some schools have. It's worse than the church, and I believe you should tax churches. So if you're sitting here going, oh yeah, we should totally tax those, leave the church alone. I'm not on your side either. Tax the fucking church. But let's really, for some of these schools, they're running for-profit institutions to train the elite to stay the elite. Take away that tax-deductible nature of it. I don't know. I could be sounding a little too much like Bernie Sanders out here, which, you know what? That's fine. Vote Biden. Next. All right. So where are we at? I'm getting derailed again. All right. So point 1, we're not forgiving all the student loans. We're not forgiving any student loans actually under this plan. No student loans forgiven. Point 2, you can now discharge them via bankruptcy. Point 3, we determine how much college education costs. Any school that charges more than that, you're now a for-profit institution. Boom. And I'll let you, that could be a sliding scale depending on part of the country you're in, what you're studying, whatever. We come up with a tier program, whatever it takes to regulate how much education should cost. Since we've determined people need to go to college, boom, there you go. And I haven't forgot about trade schools. Don't sit there and go, well, they don't have to go to college. I got something coming up for you too. Create a grant program that requires schools to apply for participation in. That's a weird sentence. Create a grant program that schools have to apply to be included in. Eligibility hinges on the criteria from the previous point. So you have to fall within the cost guidelines that we've decided schools should cost. But it also hinges on things like education experts, cultural anthropologists, experts, people that get together and come up with a set of requirements schools have to meet for this federal funded grant program. That grant goes to the schools to cover the education cost of every American student who applies. As long as you meet all the qualifications, you get in there. Government pays it, including trade schools, not just 4-year colleges, not just 2-year colleges, trade schools. You want to learn to be a proper machinist? We'll pay for it because we need a manufacturing base in this company. Want to learn to be an electrician? Fuck yeah. You should see me install an outlet. It's fucking scary. Let's train some electricians. Whatever. We pay for it through tax dollars. Oh my God, you're raising taxes. Sure as fuck am. That's the next point. Okay, so let's just recap the points again. 1, we're not getting rid of any student loans. You're not going to have to worry that the PhD living next to you got it for free while your BS in, I don't know, whatever you got your BS in, cost you and you paid for it and didn't get to buy a Prius because you paid it off. That's not going to happen. Number 2, that's going to be discharged by bankruptcy, right? Like every other thing you borrow, if you borrow it and you can't pay it back, there are legal recourses of action. Number 3, if a school charges too much money, fuck them, pay taxes. That's American. Well, not the paying taxes part, because we don't think we should pay tax. We think other people should. But anyway, if a school charges too much money, fuck them. They got to pay taxes on it. Number 4, a grant program that covers the cost of education for every kid attending schools that qualify under the grant program. I do agree. Some people are like, well, that's going to be sketchy, because who's going to decide what those schools can teach? It's going to be rough, but we can figure it out. I know we can. Maybe we have to kill half the population. No, okay, that's not part of this plan. Let's pull out the murder. Let's stick with getting in there. All right, how do we pay for that grant program? Well, we get a 0.5% employer side payroll tax. What's an employer side payroll tax? Do you get a paycheck? When you get your paycheck, do you see that? Hold on. Let me call in my Dave Ramsey voice, because I know Americans trust Dave Ramsey. They shouldn't. Like Dave Ramsey does not know much about what he's talking about. Like, he believes, oh, you gotta pay your debts. You gotta trust Jesus, and you gotta fuck you, Dave Ramsey. But I know his voice is why people believe him, because it's very common. It's got that kind of folksy feel to it, where he gives you common sense advice that your daddy probably gave you, but he says it on TV. And since he says it on the TV, then it's gotta be real, right? And then he comes up with something like, my daddy told me don't give a dog 2 nickels if you want a monkey to give you a quarter, and a gorilla to give you a banana, and an elephant to give you peanuts. Those things don't go together. And you're like, I don't know what you just said, Dave, but it sounds vaguely racist. All right, so here comes the Dave Ramsey voice. Yes, we're going to do it on an employer side payroll tax, right? So when you get your paycheck, you look at it and you see on your paycheck is a FICA number, right? That's Social Security, that's that Medicare. Now I know that's socialist agenda. That is like putting in social safety nets and charging everybody for it. But when you see what you pay, you also got to understand your employer pays a match on that. It's kind of a fucked up system. Okay, Dave Ramsey wouldn't say fucked up. Fuck, I lost it. Anyway, that employer match isn't a good system because, right, like it's capped at the Social Security side of it is no one pays Social Security tax after they make $120,000, whatever that limit is. I forget. It's been a minute since I've had to worry about preparing people's payroll. But that employer side of that and the employee side of that are 2 separate things. That's why when you work for yourself, you feel like you're getting fucked because you are quote unquote double taxed on the employee, the self-employment tax, because you pay 15%, whereas an employee of a company would only pay 7.5% because the other 7.5% is paid for by the employer. Is all of this boring yet? I've thrown about a bunch of numbers. No one cares about tax law. Get to the part where you're eating the rich, Chris. I'm not. That's the thing. What I am saying is we take that employer side, we bump it up by 0.5%. Not 5%, not 1%, half of 1% of all wages that an employer pays. We take that and we put it into this fund that pays for college education. Now, do we do it for all wages employer pays? Well, Chris, that's going to disincentivize employers from hiring people. No. We're going to do it the exact opposite of the way Social Security tax works. We're going to do it on wages over $100,000. So that means if an employer wants to hire people for $30,000, $40,000 a year to get shit done and be job creators that we know they are, we're not going to penalize them for it. But you start hiring executives, those executives you're going to pay a 0.5% premium for their salaries if it's over $100,000. And why? Why is that fair? Because those companies with those employees are the ones that are going to benefit the most from this education program. We're giving them an educated workforce, whether it's in the trades, whether it's in classic academia, whatever. They're coming in with people who know how to read, write, and arithmetic at least a third as good as the Chinese middle schoolers. American college students are about as educated as middle schoolers in Chinese when it comes to math. So sorry, like, look at that. Socialism's doing some good over there. I mean, the rest of the country, it may be a totalitarian hellhole in a lot of aspects, but they're kicking the shit out of us in a lot of educational areas. But anyway, those employers are going to benefit from that new workforce. Not only that, if you're not benefiting from the labor that's available for you, you're benefiting from the fact that other people are educated and getting higher paid jobs and they're becoming your customers. So yes, we're charging you for it. You already get away with having most municipalities keeping your streets together while you avoid paying any taxes, or you have sweetheart TIF deal, tax increment financing deals that keep you from paying any taxes for 100 years because you built your Walmart in their city. So shut the fuck up and bear down on it. All right. Let's recap before we go to the next point. So we're not forgiving any student loans. Everybody's got to pay them. Or if you can't pay them, the second part, they can be discharged through bankruptcy, which they might not all be discharged. What this does may give you some kind of negotiating power with the banks that hold your student loans. So now you can get better repayment plans that maybe you don't discharge any of it. Maybe you repay it, but you come up with some better plans. You get interest halted. You get deals where the interest is cut. Most of what you pay on student loans isn't the principal, it's the interest, because, usury is not a sin anymore. Anyway, so they get discharged through bankruptcy. The third, schools who charge too much money, fuck you, pay taxes. Fourth, a grant system to pay for the education, free money for the schools. If you qualify under all the requirements, you get free money because we're paying the students to go to you. 4, we're paying for all this with a 0.5% increase on employer side payroll tax on wages over $100,000.
I don't see an app for that. You'll need to download one.
That was Siri on my Apple Watch because I accidentally clicked the crown when I was gesturing because I talk with my hands. Last bit, because we do need public sector workers who are educated. We need government workers who are educated. We need charity workers, NGOs. We need people in the streets making sure you get a sandwich if you're hungry, whatever. So student loans can be forgiven by people who work in non-religious. I'm not giving this to anybody who works for the Catholic Church, or anybody who works for the Pentecostal Church, or anybody who works for the Mosque of the Seven Baskets of Veils of Cthulhu. Whatever religion you want to start or be a part of, it can't be given to it. Because I believe in separation of church and state. You might not. That's because you're wrong and you misunderstand the words of Thomas Jefferson. And I don't know, you might be stupid, right? Like there's enough out there. You're just selectively cherry picking facts to support an argument rather than like using any kind of discernment skills that the good Lord, who doesn't exist, may have empowered you with. But anyway, anyone who works for one of these non-religious charities for 10 years, you can get your student loans completely forgiven. You do a vetting on the organizations to make sure they're not low-key, secretly working on a religious agenda. You also exclude completely the Salvation Army and other fucked up institutions that base their services on you attending a church, and somehow also want to like hook electrodes up to gay and trans kids. So you get rid of those, and you give it to, look, I'm going to throw you a bone. You give to first responders. That means some police are going to get their student loan debts forgiven. That's fine. I'm assuming we're going to reform some of the police system in tandem before anything like this ever happens. So yeah, I want cops to not have student loan debt too. Maybe I want cops to be in a better mood. Firefighters especially, because, they have a high rate of maybe dying in a fire. They shouldn't do it with $200,000 in student loan debt too. Give it to the military. So we encourage people in the military to maybe go to school before they even go into military. Let's bring back a highly educated military class. And you give it to teachers in public schools, not private schools. That's very important. Public schools. You teach for 10 years in a public school, you have no student loans. And we make it to where that program runs so much more efficiently and easily to participate in than the current student loan forgiveness programs that there'll never be shocking exposés written about it. I don't know. That's me. That's my student loan plan. It's not fair. It's completely unfair. It is 100% unfair, but it's good for society. And if more Americans would care about what was good for society than what was fair, we would be better off as a country. That's me. I'm Chris Sear. This is Impolite Company. Thanks for listening. I was going to say some other shit, but that's been 40 minutes. No one needs to hear my voice that much. Buy my album. It's on everywhere you listen to comedy albums. I tried to post a link of where to buy it, but Amazon and iTunes make it almost impossible to post a link to direct buy something instead of to things that sign you up for their subscription service where artists get fucked every day. So whatever, just listen to it and know my name. I guess that's all it takes to make a living these days. Follow us on social media, Impolite Company on Insta, or what? Nope, that's not it. Impolite STL on Instagram. Impolite Company on Facebook. Follow me, Chris D. Sear on Instagram. The Chris Sear on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky, but no one else is, so I won't give that handle yet. ChristopherSear.com. All my upcoming shows. Take care.
Comfortably. Hope you're in the mood for some impolite company.